We're now joined by former Congressman Harold Ford, now chairman of the Democratic Leadership Council and the author of a new book, More Davids Than Goliaths of Political Education. Excellent title. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And Harold, I know you think that the president did the right thing on this issue, has the right position, but did he do it in the right way?
He probably could have spoke more artfully the first day and more clearly.
How so?
I think that, well, if he believed that there's a right to build, but perhaps they should not build in that location, he probably should have just said that. I think the follow-up has created some confusion and probably will create some consternation in political circles within the party. Harry Reid announcing his opposition to building the cultural center. It's interesting, the terms of the debate have been defined by the other side. It's not a mosque, but a cultural center that's going to be built. Has now said that he's opposed to building it there. What looks like could happen, George, is a consensus could build around maybe moving in a few blocks from where, moving the construction of the cultural center or the locating of the center a few blocks from where they have planned it now. It might be there was a rumor yesterday that came up that the leaders of the center were thinking about that. It was first reported in the Israeli press, but they came right out and said, no way. Would that take the issue off the table for Democrats now? Well, it might, if you take Reid at the core of what he's saying I support it, but just not there. So you might be able to find some agreement around it. I think Mayor Bloomberg will obviously play a lead role in brokering this. He's been such a staunch and I think had the right position on this, not only for New York, but for the country. If you can't build this in Manhattan, in New York City, if we can't foster a center, build a center will foster conversation about tolerance and understanding, here, where else can you do it? What better place to do it? But it may be that the politics has gotten so intense that you may have to consider moving this just a few blocks away, and perhaps you can find Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative support for this.
How big a deal do you think this issue is? I mean, obviously you saw the president's opponents pounce hard over the weekend, which is part of the reason he seemed to backtrack on Saturday. You see Reid breaking away from it, but is this something that's going to linger through November or go away with the once everybody's back from Labor Day break?
Well, jobs and the economy are foremost on people's minds. This is, in a lot of ways, a distraction. Not that it's not an important issue, but it's a distraction in that regard. But as you and I both know in politics, these kinds of distractions can define campaigns in the last 8 weeks. New York City, we are approaching the anniversary of 9/11. Obviously, from what I hear, Newt Gingrich and others plan to speak that day at the site, which the cultural center is planned to be built or planned to locate in. Politics will certainly be around this until Election Day. I think Reid's comments yesterday opened the door for all Senate candidates to be asked about this, and he's given
and break with the president most likely.
Right. Reid has given his colleagues and those running for office cover in saying that we support the right to build, but this may not be the place to build.
Put your old campaign hat back on. You ran for Senate back in 2006. You write about it in More Davids Than Goliaths. This is a tough environment for Democrats right now. You've got this job situation, high unemployment. You've got ethics problems. You've got the former chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Charlie Rangel, Maxine Waters facing trials in the House. Now you've got this issue. Put the campaign hat back on. How do you run as a Democrat in this environment?
I think Democrats, when they return in the fall, and I talk a little bit about this in the book when I ran for leader in 2002 about how the message has got to change. I think some of these tax cuts should be extended, make the middle class ones permanent, phase in the top level. I think, too, you take some of the...
So break with the president on that.
Well, the president's given some wiggle room there. He's indicated that he'd like to make some of these middle class rates permanent, but I have some different opinions about some of the other rates, particularly the business rates. I don't think you ought to add more uncertainty to the marketplace now, particularly for any size business. To take some of the unused stimulus and apply that to some deficit reduction applied to projects, infrastructure projects that are ready to be moved on. And finally, I think you got to come out with some of the recommendations from that deficit commission right away. If raising the retirement age is on the table, if there's consensus with Simpson and Bowles there, you got to be willing to do that for people under 45, including myself.
Okay, Harold Ford, thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.